We're going fishing this week on Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles. Okay, maybe not fishing, but we will talk to lure collector Dave Boyer from Strasburg about his passion for antique fishing lures. That's coming up, so stay tuned. Here on Hobbies, Crafts, and Collectibles today, we've lured in Dave Boyer from Strasburg. He has an awesome fishing collection, as you can see. Dave, thanks so much for coming.
Hey, you're certainly welcome. I love to talk fishing tackle.
Good deal. I'm hoping to hear some of those stories, you know, the one that got away, the...
Okay.
But no, I'm really excited about this because I've always had this weird affinity for lures, although I know nothing about them. I don't know about their collectability or their value or what makes one special over another. I just like the graphics of them. They're so fun and colorful. And,
yes,
yeah.
they are.
When did they start making lures? When did that become a thing?
Wood lures were early 1900s. Hedden was making lures 1902.
Okay.
So, which was a little before my time. I'm getting old, but they've progressed through the years. There was 5 major companies up until about 1980, and there's been a lot of independent companies, but the majors are the ones that are most collectible, that are worth the most money. So.
I see. So are the company-made ones more collectible than like a handmade lure would be?
For the most part.
Okay.
For me, they are. We call just the hand-carved lures that different people make, or just folk art, which they're very good, don't get me wrong, but but they're not my cup of tea. I would just as soon stick to the majors, and
gotcha.
It's a lot easier for me to try to determine a value or that as the folk art.
Understood.
I like folk art, but the fishing tackle is pretty vast, so I needed to just get more in.
Focus it in a little bit.
Yeah. Cut
Was it overrunning the house,
yes,
the barn?
Yes.
Understood.
Yeah.
I've been there. I know what you mean. So you focused in on a specific company you really like, is Bomber.
Yeah, Bomber Bait Company is what I chose to make my major collection.
And what was it about Bomber that made you decide on them?
Well, for one thing, their patent was in 1947. That was the year I was born, so that was, we had something in common, but their lures were patented. And actually, when I started collecting bombers, they were cheap and I could afford them. And a lot of the major companies I can't afford. It's I just can't pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for one lure.
And that blows my mind, like the value range, you were saying earlier, 50 cents to
$50,000.
$50,000. I can't even imagine. What's the record number, you think? What do you know as far as one that just really went up there?
The highest one that I know of was a Haskell minnow, and it was 100,000 plus.
Yeah.
And there was a 10% buyer's premium on top of that. So.
Wow.
Big chunk of change.
Yeah, it sure is.
Rest assured, I don't have anything like that here.
Well, I want to learn about your history because you actually, did you spend any time around the fishing hole at all when you were a youngin', or?
Oh yeah, in fact, I couldn't afford lures when we were little. We just used worms and the old poles we cut from the trees and stuff, and I think that's why lures intrigued me. When I got older, I had a little more money, so I could buy a lure.
There you go. There you go. And you've been collecting, what, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, I've been serious at it for 15 years, and probably closet collecting for 20, I suppose.
Gotcha.
But after I collected about 5 years, I needed some direction, and I joined this National Fishing Lure Collectors Club, and that's the kind of group of the people that I can relate to. They know a lot about lures, and so that's where I belong. So
gotcha.
And I found out I probably bought mostly junk for the first 5 years, but that's part of it.
Well, that is part of it. And what I love is that you can kind of see how your collection has progressed. You were mentioning 1940s earlier, 1947 being the first year for Bomber. You have an older box, and I love this display that you've set up actually because it shows kind of through time here what Bomber has done with their packaging, but this is your older one, right?
That's the very first box. That's the very first one. In 1947. Well, actually, this box was about 1945. Okay. Because there's no patent on this box, and the first patent box was here. So these boxes run between 45 and 47. And once they're patented, that's 1947 or after. So,
and I know from what little I know that collecting, when you have the original box in good condition, that helps the value of the piece as well, right? So you really do look for lures in their original packaging.
Yes, it's sometimes the box is worth as much as the lure to the collectors, because actually the lures are much easier to find than boxes.
Understood.
In nice shape, I mean, nice condition. And the boxes, that first box is, I just hope I find another one someday. But
understood. Worth a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Understood.
That's a keeper.
Yeah.
We call that a keeper.
A keeper.
Yeah.
Don't throw that one back in, right?
Right.
Well, I find it fascinating that lures come in so many different shapes and sizes. And that determines, I guess, what kind of fish you're catching. Is that right?
That's true. We have fly rod baits, and that's for trout and bluegill around your ponds, and then you move up to bass baits, and then you got huge baits.
Huge baits, yeah. And I'm going to show a couple of those big ones here in a minute. Tell me about some of the various box collections that you have put together here, according to what type they are. And what makes them special? Like these, there's a wide variety in this box. Some of these look pretty old, but what can you tell me about this display here of lures?
Well, this is a bomber prototype case, I call it. It's for the most part, these lures were never mass produced by Bomber. They put some of them out for experimental. Oh, I see. And these survived. And
these are pretty rare then.
These are very rare. these are very rare. So that's it's a really a great find for me to have those, because it's
this is one of my favorites right here. I don't
know,
probably because of the squirrel?
Swirl.
Oh, swirl.
Swirl.
Because of the coloring or whatever. But again, and I guess that's what attracts me to them. It's the vintage colors and the graphics. You know, I'm just kind of a sucker for those things. But
one thing about the swirl paint job, you'll never find another lure exactly like either one of those.
Well, sure, yeah.
I mean, the swirl, you just don't know how it's going to come out.
Sure.
When they dip those, what you see is what you get after it's done.
Right. Kind of like tie-dyeing a T-shirt. You just don't know what it's going to look like.
And that's cool that you will never find two alike at all.
That's very cool. Especially, I know, in the collecting world that makes your heart go pitter-patter when you see that, huh? Now, I met Diane earlier. Quite a catch.
Oh yeah.
But she's gotten in on this a little bit. I mean, you got to, right, as a couple. But she was telling me she's really attracted to some of the smaller lures. Tell me about these. These are actually Diane's, right?
Right. These are mini spin sticks.
Oh, okay.
And they make larger sizes of those, like 3.5 inch. But these 2-inch ones, 2.5 inch ones, they're a lot harder to find, for one thing. And of course, she's got good taste, I guess, because these always cost me more than my stuff, but I think it's a way of getting even.
There you go.
But
I love that.
It's they're fun to collect, hard to find, and there's a couple, like the rainbow trout colored lure there. That's the only one that I know of.
Wow, that one is really neat. This one
it's
right
rare,
here.
rare.
Yeah,
it's rare.
That is so cool.
And the one right below it's fairly rare, but the rainbow trout is. Well, that's a one of a kind.
Yeah. And what I love about your collection is you're very careful to collect ones that haven't been used. I mean, if they were used at all, once or twice maybe, but in the original packaging, you can find them that way because they've not been in the water, and you don't fish with these. These are
it's
these are something that you just admire.
I think over time you learn to be picky.
Sure.
The better condition that you have is more they'll be worth, in the long run.
It's a better investment.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's well put. That's
understood. I like these. Now these have a really unique shape to them. What kind of lure is this?
They call those are bombers, and they call those midget bomberettes. And there are some rare ones in it. There's 3 colors here that there's very few of these been found.
That's fascinating. That one's actually got glitter in it.
Yeah.
I like that.
But there's a lot of pretty lures in there, and
They are. They almost look like little lobsters or something.
And those, I have some of those that I fish, but not these. They're not in this good a condition. So.
Oh, gotcha.
And they catch bass on Lake Shelbyville, but but don't tell everybody.
There you go. Okay, your secret's safe with us. But now these are again Diane's, but the shape of these are really fascinating. And you were telling me that this one in the middle especially is pretty rare.
Yeah, these are head and high tails.
Okay.
And they were made from like 1957 to 61.
Okay.
And this one with the checkers on it was a giveaway at the Indy 500 in 1961 or 2.
Gotcha.
So it's, at the time I think they gave like 200,000 away, but you know, they're a really rare find these days. So.
Understood. These are so cute. You call them head and high tail.
Head and high
I
tails.
can see where they got their name.
And they look like little whales.
They do. They look like little whales.
And the women just love them, you know. So that's,
yeah. I like that one very much. Now we were talking about some of the larger ones. There's such a variety. I mean, we could spend hours probably talking about all the different ones. But some of the saltwater fishing ones are pretty huge. This one over here I like him.
I've never dreamed of using a lure that big, but.
Have you ever gone saltwater fishing?
Not with a lure like that, I haven't. The only saltwater fishing I've done one time, and that was we used live bait or cut bait. We never even used a lure, but I can't imagine fishing a lure that big.
Yeah.
Of course, I seen it. I had to have it. It's
very cool. Now this one's huge too. What kind of fish would you catch with this?
Well, I think they made that for muskie and northern pike in the northern country in Canada. And,
gotcha.
And I don't know whether it works or not, but
yeah.
I see several of those that are scarred up, so somebody catches something with them or beats them on the rocks.
There you go. Well, at least you have 3 times the chance to hear with the hooks.
I don't see much in central Illinois that would want that bait.
Right. Oh, now do you get out on the lake much to fish, or?
Oh, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good. Where's your? Oh, I shouldn't ask. Nobody likes to reveal their favorite fishing hole because then it gets crowded, right?
Yeah, I go to Shelbyville, so it's crowded anyway.
It's already, yeah. People know it's there.
Yeah,
gotcha.
After 40 years, they found us out.
Now you have a couple of metal ones here. I wanted to talk about. This one's really unique. What kind of?
Okay, that would be for muskie or northern baits, but the biggest thing I like about the bait is the box. You know, I like the box collection, and I bought that bait just for the box, basically.
It's so cool. The graphics on the box, you're right, they get me. I like this one though, Hugger Bait Company. Was that a big bait company?
Well, I don't. No, not really.
Okay.
It was kind of one of those little.
Gotcha.
Obscure little outfits that nobody really knew a whole lot about. But
now I gotta show you. This is my favorite lure. I don't know what it is about this guy, but he's got such character, I guess. But I can't imagine actually fishing with him. It almost feels like paper or cloth, or what's his tail made out of here?
It's kind of a cloth material that would resemble a frog. Is what the artificial bait. You know, if you look at it closer, that would be a frog.
Understood.
Kind of an odd-colored frog.
Kind of
a pretty little fellow, though.
But he is. He's gorgeous, and I again love the little box.
And that was from Cooper Lures in Chicago, and you know that was another company that wasn't large, but you know they put out some nice lures, as you can see.
And that's the great thing about getting the box, because you can tell exactly for research purposes where it was made by whom.
That's true.
And age.
Makes my life easier when I can. Because there's reference materials for most lures, if you look in the books.
Sure. Now, which one's your favorite? And why? I think.
Well,
this guy.
Yeah, I like that Dace creek chub bait, and mostly just because it's so pretty.
Yeah, he really is. Look at I love the box again on this one.
That Dace color, just you know that thing is, you know, it's 50 years old and looks brand new.
Look at that, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, kind of that mallard blue and the red on him. I could see a fish wanting to get a hold of that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, but they're not going to get a chance on this one.
Understood. Wouldn't be very inviting once they've been
No, that's
into it
one of my
anyway.
favorite lures. The fish is not getting that one.
I understand. Now, of course, you know, to get the right fish, the right lure is important, but you've also got reels, and reels are kind of important too. So what can you tell me about some of your reels as far as age or collectability?
Well, some of the ambassador reels, like these two, they were really popular in the 60s and 70s. And, and they were made in Sweden, and they were bait casters that a lot of the bass fishermen really loved these reels. And in fact, they said our middle name is Bass, you know, so it's ambassador. So
oh, clever.
Clever. So but those, there's better reels than that on the market now, I think, maybe. And that was just, that's what everybody used at that time frame, was ambassador reels. And they used to be a lot more collectible than they are right now. And that's just something that goes with collectibles. It's up and down, and just like everything else is. So
right. Well, one of the funnest things I think that you collect is the minnow
trap.
Yeah, that is so neat, and it's so fragile. And I'm not going to really pick it up, but I'll do the Vanna White thing here and point at it. But it almost looks like a little pig or something, because look at the nose on this thing.
It's that is actually a Hawco brand trap, which is very similar to Shakespeare, and there's got to be some ties there somewhere, but I don't know where that would be.
Now explain how that works. So the minnow would actually swim in this end?
Yes, he would go in the funnel end.
And what keeps him from coming back out?
They don't know to come back out that funnel.
Their brains are just too tiny to figure that one out, aren't they? And so then you can take the lid off the other end, and you've got, this one has a neat copper metal lid. I love that. And
then you can dump your minnows out into your bucket or your container, whatever you chose to use.
Right.
But those traps are, you know, they're fairly rare. And
they're highly collectible, aren't they?
And you can see why. You know, they just set that in a creek bed and a piece of glass and on a rope, probably.
With all those stones around and everything,
So, you know, a lot of those didn't survive. And a friend of mine wrote the book on that glass minnow traps.
Yes, this is an interesting book.
He just released that last year. And I've learned a lot from reading the book. There's several reproduction traps on the market these days, and that'll spell that out for you. You don't have to worry about buying a reproduction if you look at that book.
If you look at that, it'll tell you what to look for. That's really cool. Now those are pretty valuable. What do they price range?
Well, they're all over the board. That particular trap I would think would be 200 plus. And there's some that are half that price, and there's some that are 3 times that much. So it's like collecting anything. You kind of get to feel how much money you want to spend or can spend.
Understood.
Yeah.
Now, this is probably something that it's hard for people to buy for you. I mean, it's hard for you to make out your birthday and Christmas list with lures. They're very specific, and you know it when you see it, kind of thing. So you probably pretty much purchase these yourself.
Yeah, my wife really doesn't buy me these for Christmas because it just doesn't work out. And it's the same way with tools. I just as soon buy my own tools as get gifts, because I know
you have the fishing lure fund.
There you
on
go.
The back wall there.
There you go. There you go.
I love that little container.
Very fun. Well, if you get into this lure collecting serious, you're going to need one of those.
Sure.
I needed a large one at first.
Well, now your wife was telling me the money rarely gets in there because you spend it before it actually has time to collect.
Well, you're not supposed to save anything.
That's right. That's right.
You never know about the banks, you know.
Well, it's so much fun having you here. You obviously love what you collect, and you know a lot about it, and it's just really been fun learning more about. Now I know a little bit more about what makes a lure and what makes it collectible, and it's not just pretty.
Right, that's true. And I like to think you know, us guys are saving a little bit of fishing heritage here for people to see. You know, it's not all about just collecting for me. It's just future generations can be saved, and they can see, you know, what we collect or what we used.
Sure.
And most of the guys collect whatever they used when they were young. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you bringing this all the way from Strasburg. Dave, you've been so much fun to talk to.
Okay. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks
for having me.
time now for our show and tell segment this week. I'm excited to show you a project I've been working on. One of the trends I've noticed lately in decorating is letters. For a couple of years now, and it's still going strong, from typewriter keys to letterpress letters that they used to use in the printing presses to big marquee letters. And bigger's better, right? So we're going to go for the big project today. This is one of the things I've been doing lately with the letters I've been able to find. Now these, you're going to find them various places, you know. Sometimes you're going to just run across them, but honestly, because they're so big right now, you can find them at most of the big flea markets these days. So this is something that you could probably pick up. You're going to find it in this condition. It's going to be dirty. I left the dirt on it just for you. It's going to be dirty, banged up. Some people like that look, some people don't. You know, it might be in a cool color, it might not. This one was kind of drab, I thought. But these are the type of letters. These would have been sign letters that you would have found on a store, and they're called channel letters. They would have had neon channels running through them and a front on them. And sometimes you can find them intact, rewire them, light them up. Sometimes you're just going to find the back channel, and of course that's going to be a lot less expensive. So I wanted to show you kind of a fun project that you could do in your space, in your child's room, in your craft room, at the office, wherever it might be. First I want to show you the big T I have on the back. T stands for my husband's name, and I found this one. It was pretty beat up. The front was destroyed, and the paint was kind of an ugly drab beige. So they have some great spray paints now. At the hardware store, I was able to find this great oil rub bronze finish, and I thought it'd look really cool. And since it's a larger letter, there's more room in it, I decided, wouldn't it look neat if it was backed with bulletin board material, and then you could actually pin stuff in it and make kind of a shadow box out of it. So all I've done here is, what I've noticed is with the letters, a lot of them are going to have bolts and rivets and all kinds of things in the back, caulking and different things. So you could, if you wanted to back this with some material or some paper of some sort, you could actually do it right on the surface. But for me, I wanted to be able to stick pins in it, wanted it to have a little bit of depth, and to avoid all of those nasty things in the back. So what I did was just buy some basic core board. This is foam core board, and you can find it at any of your big stores or your hobby stores. And it's got a thickness to it. So what I did was take the actual letter. Now I learned the hard way. I want to show you a tip here, because I actually took the T, and I'll use this H as an example. I took the T and I laid it over my core board like so on its front. And I traced it out just using a pencil. And that's easy enough, right? But what you're going to want to do, because again, I learned the hard way, you're going to want to turn it over on its back. Because these things have been salvaged and beaten and pulled, and they're going to be a little bit warped. And sometimes the front doesn't always match the back. So you're going to want to use the back to trace onto your backing. And it could be a mat board, poster board. Like I said, I want a little depth because I'm going to stick pins in it. I used foam core board. And you got to be a little patient with foam core to cut it and to be precise. You're going to need a really sharp X-Acto knife. And just put a new blade in it because you're going to use it because it will want to pull and tear. But you're just going to trace it out with pencil, like I showed you, and then you're going to protect your surface. Again, thought I was doing that pretty well, but you want a pretty good surface underneath it. I finally ended up with just a cutting board, a wooden cutting board underneath it, because I do have a new mark on my table now. But you're just going to want to very carefully run it along where you traced, and you're just going to follow the entire letter all the way around until that's complete. Now you can buy cork board in rolls now, and this is kind of a thin one, but it's what we had locally. It's what I was able to find. I'm sure you could find something thicker. But you're just going to then take the letter that you cut out in foam core, and you're going to want to lay it. This was a huge piece. This is my scrap, what I've got left. But you're just going to want to lay the letter over on your cork board, and then again, using a sharp X-Acto knife, follow the shape. And then you're going to want a great adhesive. And I found an adhesive that actually said on it that it was good for cork board. But you're going to want to follow the instructions. This one you had to lay it on in 15 seconds, or else it formed more of a temporary bond instead of a permanent bond. And that kind of came back to bite me later, and we had to redo it because my cork board actually was coming loose. So follow the instructions and adhese it as quickly as you can, but super easy, right? And then you just set it in the back of the letter and use a little bit of epoxy to hold it in there, and that'll hold really nice. And then the fun part is accessorizing it. I've hung a few of my son's awards in here just to show you pictures, whatever it might be that you'd want to hang, but part of the fun is making some cool tack tacks to put on these. So I wanted to show you some fun things. You can actually just use store-bought tacks, but what I find is the curvature of them sometimes can throw you a little off. You want to use a really strong epoxy, and what I've done here is actually found some cool upholstery tacks. Again, a little more depth, and they just kind of have a neat industrial look, and they were a little bit flatter on top, so I wanted to get a good base. But oh, anything from, these are old pop bottles, can you imagine? Pop bottle tops. Wake up, thumbs up, cheer up. These are just some fun ones that I found. I mentioned earlier, typewriter keys. Here's an example of that, a backspace and an L. You can just strip some of these off a typewriter. Of course, make sure it's not a good typewriter. I hate to see old typewriters that are still usable. These are actually little watch faces, and that's kind of a fun look. And again, just using a strong adhesive. Usually they come in a tube about like so, and just follow the instructions on that and should be no problem. I just wanted to show you before we go one more example. Back here on the wall I have an R. And this R, I'm actually kind of a hoarder of fabric, and I had this cool bark cloth from the 1960s, kind of an atomic print. And I thought, you know, R for retro, it'll look really cute. And now you can finish this out. Like I just left the edges of the cork board raw, but you could actually finish this out with some cording if you want, whatever you want to do. Use some wrapping paper even for Christmas, like I have here. I have some nice vintage wrap. That's my next project. But I'm sure you have lots of cool ideas yourself, so get to it. I'd love to see your finished product. Send us a picture. Thanks for watching.